Hey, this, and I know this is another just me talking video, but I really didn't want to make a big deal out of it or anything because, well, let me just try to explain myself here a little. Uh, this is basic comic book news, but Marvel Comics, you know how much I don't like Joe Quesada, which is, well, when I started just go back all the way to my first video and try to find all the other videos about me and him and all the links I had to some of the most wonderful, colorful things that he basically said, like there's no such thing as 11-year-old readers. He basically belittled a blogger, yanked off and said that the marriage between Peter Parker and Mary Jane was nothing more than a publicity stunt, which basically, man, plenty of people asking, what the fuck, seriously? This is coming from the same guy who's bashing Marvel Comics for making a publicity stunt out of one marriage and then doing it with another marriage, like the marriage between Storm and Black Panther. It was just utter bullshit. But anyways, the big news from last month, uh, this time not being 4 months ago, like with the DC's getting a new editor in chief, is that Marvel, well, after rearranging and giving Quesada 10 times more power over Marvel Comics, he finally steps down, and they got a new editor in chief over at Marvel, Alonso. That really is his name. If you look up Marvel Comics at Wikipedia, you'll see it. Honestly, I don't know much about the guy. At least that he's an editor and not a artist that will give out 200 copies of a certain comic book, Civil War. Yeah, Civil War. And then, um, basically you had to get 200 copies of Civil War to get the special sketch cover done by Michael Turner. Yeah, 200 copies. Or no sketchy cover. Way to go, Quesada. It was actually it was not 200, it was 2,000. But yeah, and it just makes the news weird because Quesada's still at Marvel as chief creative officer, which basically means that it'll be harder to wedge Quesada out of Marvel Comics worse than anything at this point. Nothing comes to mind. My brain's a total blank in this area. But yeah, it seems that instead everybody was all worried about Joe Quesada getting fired. Instead, he gets more power, and then he goes power mad and seems to bring up more and more shitty stories, and now he has complete control over Marvel. Yeah. I mean, of course, even more weirder news from my last video when I said that Bob Harras was the new editor in chief of DC. Most of you don't understand that Bob Harras used to, before Joe Quesada was editor in chief, Bob Harras was the editor in chief of Marvel Comics. And now that Joe Quesada is no longer editor in chief of Marvel Comics, and it's now Alex Alonso, whatever. Bob Harras is now editor in chief of DC Comics. Of course, he was the one who came up with who greenlit Marvel Knights, which granted Joe Quesada a lot of power, and Joe Quesada basically stepped in and said, "Hey, I saved Marvel Comics from its bankruptcy," which was bullshit. Actually, if anybody checked, it was several people, one of which was Bob Harras, because he was bringing out so many good comics except for the Spider-Man Clone Wars, which its ending was an utter piece of shit. But basically, Bob Harras was selling basically, Marvel was still selling high, even though it was under a bankruptcy, and in fact ended up saving Marvel from being completely broken apart. And as well as Avery Ivory, who owned Toy Biz Company, who bought out Marvel before Hasbro bought out Toy Biz, and then Disney bought out Marvel, but Aver Ivory created Marvel Studios and got rid of that Marvel Production Studios, which was the sole reason, which was a no, not the sole, I mean a big reason to why Marvel hit the bankruptcy. And after that whole Clone Saga mess that Bob Harris fucked up on the ending when he was editor in chief of Marvel, basically Bob Harris was basically blamed for the entire disaster of Marvel, and all the fans basically blamed him for Marvel's bankruptcy, which was utter bullshit. I mean, before Bob Harris was editor in chief, he was editor in chief of the X Men because they were all broken up in different categories, and then they just bunched it all up and put Bob Harris on there, and then after the whole Clone Wars saga, he was blamed for it all. I mean, he fucked up on the Clone Wars, Spider-Man Clone Wars, but given the simple facts and seeing how Joe Quesada has basically completely fucked up the Spider-Man comic books with that One More Day, Brand New Day, and One Moment at Time, or called Omit, I can honestly tell you Joe Quesada has done 10 times more damage than what fucking Bob Harris has ever done. 10 times. And of course, he also eliminated Michael Skinsky, even though PR wise, Michael Skinsky won't say anything about it, but um, uh, that's pretty much it. Nothing else to say.